I thought I will bring a new dimension to the discussion, because I think in this large field of land, agriculture, and food, there are three major actors, and it is important to see the role of all the actors in place. Shall I continue?
Donc il me remercie de mon intervention en disant qu'il y a au fond trois acteurs majeurs dans le domaine de l'agriculture et de l'alimentation.
See, one set of actors are systematically, constantly trying to deprive marginalized communities from their land and resources. And this process began with indigenous people. It continued with the fisher folks. It continued with nomads. Then it continued with small shopkeepers. So it is a systematic process of depriving people from their land and livelihood resources in the name of development and progress.
Donc un premier acteur, un premier courant est celui qui marginalise les populations fragiles, les populations autochtones, les pêcheurs traditionnels, les migrants, les nomades et les shopkeepers qui vendent dans le secteur informel les denrées alimentaires.
Yeah. But the second set of actors are important to my mind, who are trying to reform the institutions, policies, and laws through their efforts. And I think a good example will be Mr. Olivier Discote, Collard Dutiel, and then Emmanuel, etc., who are trying to influence the institutions and policies through their work. And this set of people are very important in a globalizing world.
Donc, deuxième catégorie d'acteurs, ce sont les réformateurs qui cherchent, dans ce contexte de pression sur les communautés marginalisées, à améliorer les choses. Et ils citent les académiques comme François Collard-Dutilleul, mais aussi les ONG représentées ici par Manuel Egen, par exemple.
Yeah. And the third set of people about whom I want to speak are those who are resisting, who are organizing huge resistance to this globalization process. And I think these two set of people, those who are trying to influence institutions and policies on one side, and people who are into nonviolent resistance on the other side, they put together are creating the space that we are able to create today.
Donc la troisième catégorie d'acteurs sont les mouvements sociaux, qui sont ceux qui résistent à ce processus de destruction de communautés entières par la mondialisation. Et ces acteurs alliés avec les réformateurs évoqués il y a un instant sont au fond la promesse d'une résistance qui doit progresser à l'avenir.
And my main area that I want to share with you is how do we turn this resistance into non-violent resistance? And the underlying principle of this process is to say, between silence and violence, opt for non-violent direct action. So silence is bad, violence is bad. How do we help our society to get organized for non-violent resistance is an area in which I was doing some very innovative work in the last many years.
Donc ces acteurs, mouvements sociaux, doivent traduire leur combat dans une démarche de non-violence. Et ce dont il s'agit ici, c'est de se situer entre le silence, résignation, et la violence, et définir les conditions d'une action directe non-violente. Et c'est sur ce thème que Rajagopal s'est investi depuis quelques années.
And this is also for us to understand that in a globalizing world, conflict is inevitable, but violence is a choice. That conflict you can't avoid because there are so many conflicting interests and conflict is going to emerge across the globe around land, forest, and water. But violence or non-violence is a choice of the organization. So on one side, we need to effectively work on this choice. On the other side, we need to understand, look, there is so much being spent for violence. In the name of army, in the name of military, in the name of police, so much is being spent in a world where nothing is being spent for peace and non-violence. There is absolutely no ministry for peace. There is no budget for non-violence. So we need to understand this contradiction, and the civil society will have to work towards promoting the agenda of non-violence.
Donc les conflits sont inévitables vu la concurrence, notamment pour les ressources, la terre, l'eau, etc. Mais ce qui n'est pas inévitable, c'est la violence. La violence, c'est un choix. Et c'est un choix qui aujourd'hui est fait pour la violence, qui est financé, qui a un ministère qui lui est dédicacé, alors que la non-violence, personne ne vient la financer, personne ne vient l'enseigner, il n'y a pas de ministère de la non-violence.
So 3 methods that I was innovatively looking at is one called converting the anger into positive action, because I believe society has a lot of anger, and according to me, anger is not a bad element. Anger is a good element, because only when you are angry you have much more energy than what you usually have. So, but then how do you convert this anger into positive action? Because of unemployment, because of poverty, because of deprivation, there is a growing level of anger, and if we don't look at this growing level of anger and handle it properly, the world is going to be too violent. So looking at anger, coordinating anger, converting anger into non-violent action is an area where I was working very hard for the last many years.
Rajagopal travaille sur 3 domaines plus particulièrement. D'abord, comment traduire la colère dans l'action positive. La colère, il y en a, avec le sous-emploi, la pauvreté, les privations, mais ceci doit être traduit de manière non violente dans l'action positive.
Yeah. For example, in this room, we are only 100 people, but then we are basically dealing with 100 kilos of anger, right? Because we have an amount of anger against the system, the way it is operating, the unemployment. So I think it is important to understand the anger rather than avoiding it. Coordinating and using it properly will make a big change and will help the policy advocates in a big way in terms of directing their energy.
Il ne s'agit pas de nier la légitimité de la colère. Ici, nous sommes une centaine, ça fait à peu près 100 kilos de colère rassemblée. Mais cette colère doit être canalisée, utilisée comme une énergie positive.
And the second area of my work was basically to convert difficulties into possibilities. You know, it's like we cannot say the mobilization is very difficult because we don't have the resources. It is important to understand the resources available within the society. So I was basically trying to convert the difficulties into possibilities.
Donc deuxième axe de réflexion, c'est les difficultés que les gens éprouvent, comment les transformer en possibilités, comment faire que les difficultés qu'ils accumulent et dont ils se plaignent puissent ouvrir de nouveaux champs du possible.
Like very ordinary people, let me take the example of poor people. They say, look, I have to walk many kilometers to get my drinking water or firewood. That means they have the capacity to walk. They say we don't have enough food. That means they have the capacity to survive with less food. They say we have to work in hot sun. That means they have the capacity to stand the heat. And they say we don't have enough space to sleep. That means they can sleep in difficult places. So what I'm trying to say, all those what appear as difficulties of people can be converted into possibilities, and that is how I was organizing long march of 25,000 people, 100,000 people, because they can walk. They can eat one meal a day and then still walk. They can walk in hot sun. They can sleep on the national highway. So how do you convert the difficulties of the people into possibilities is something which I was working on for the last many years.
Donc transformer les épreuves que les gens traversent en possibilités, ça veut dire par exemple que les gens qui marchent de longues heures pour chercher l'eau ou le feu, enfin le bois pour faire du feu, les gens qui se passent de nourriture pendant des journées entières, etc., ont montré leur capacité à traverser ces épreuves, et cette capacité peut être mise à contribution pour manifester, pour protester. Et c'est l'esprit dans lequel ces marches ont été organisées, rassemblant jusqu'à 100 000 personnes. C'est au fond misant sur ces épreuves que les personnes ont traversées et sur ces capacités que les personnes ont démontrées.
I'm trying it because generally there is a tendency to say that, look, we can't mobilize the society because we don't have the resources. I think the resources are there. It's only a question of converting those resources into action where the changes can be brought about in the policies and laws of the government.
Donc les ressources sont là, il suffit de les utiliser, de les convertir en action pour faire pression sur le gouvernement.
And the last point I want to make in that is I was also trying to create a basket of success. That is what I call it, a basket of success. What all can be brought together for poor people to act successfully?
Donc la troisième piste de réflexion, c'est le panier des recettes qui permettent une action de réussir, une action de protestation de réussir.
And the four components that I have brought together are: one, it is called power of the poor, because generally we look at poor people with a point of view that they need to be helped. But what is important is to understand there is an inbuilt power among the poor people. In spite of poverty, they can still sing, dance, and walk. If you remember this book of Majid Rahnama, he wrote a book on power of the poor. Right? It's basically realizing the power of the poor. That is one component in the basket.
Donc ce panier des recettes sur lesquelles il faut miser, c'est quatre éléments. D'abord, il y a le pouvoir des pauvres, leur capacité à être au fond maîtres de leur propre destin. Et Rajagopal cite un livre de Majid Helma qui a ce titre, Power of the Poor.
The second component is called the power of the young. I think the young people have tremendous energy, and that energy need to be brought into the basket of change action.
Donc le pouvoir des jeunes est le deuxième élément, la deuxième composante de ce panier. Les jeunes ont une énergie considérable qui peut être mobilisée pour la justice sociale.
And I call the third power is power of solidarity, because when people were marching in India, 100,000 people were marching in India, 100,000 letters came to the Prime Minister of India, which brought about a change in the land policy of government. So I think this solidarity action has a tremendous power, and that is the third component in the basket.
Donc le troisième composante, c'est le pouvoir de la solidarité. Lorsque 100 000 personnes écrivent au gouvernement indien pour obtenir des réformes dans l'accès à la terre, ceci ne peut pas laisser indifférent le président de l'Union indienne, et ce pouvoir de la solidarité est aussi quelque chose sur quoi l'on peut miser.
And the fourth component is called the power of non-violence. And I think if people can be trained, organized to act non-violently, it has tremendous impact in terms of policy shift. And I have seen that happening in different parts of the world in the last many years.
Donc quatrièmement, il y a le pouvoir de la non-violence, pouvoir considérable, sous-estimé, et c'est ce pouvoir qui a beaucoup impressionné Rajagopal au cours des années précédentes.
So in order to bring about change in a globalizing world where global forces are trying to grab the land and resources, I think we need to innovatively think in terms of organizing people to resist.
Donc dans ce monde mondialisé où les conflits sont permanents et la pression très forte sur les plus pauvres, il faut miser sur ces différents éléments pour organiser les gens afin qu'ils résistent mieux.
I want to end with a small incident from Mahatma Gandhi's life. And a professor of history came to meet Mahatma Gandhi once and told him, look, why are you fooling Indians by saying there is non-violent revolution? There is no non-violent revolution in history. The French Revolution was violent. Chinese Revolution was violent. Russian Revolution was violent. So why are you fooling Indians by saying there is something called non-violent revolution?
Rajagopal termine par cette anecdote. Mahatma Gandhi reçoit la visite d'un historien qui lui dit « Mais arrêtez de tromper les gens en parlant d'une révolution non violente. Ceci n'a jamais eu lieu dans l'histoire. Pensez à la Révolution française, la Révolution russe. Il y a toujours eu du sang versé. » Et Gandhi répond
Yeah. So he thought he's provoking Gandhi, but then Gandhi looked at him and smiled and said, Mr. Professor, you are teaching history, but I am making history.
Voilà.